Gideon's having some...
Okay. Hey guys, welcome back to the TV Pilot Podcast. I'm Gideon and that's Andrew and you're listening to the TV Pilot Podcast.
You scooped me. Damn it.
Dog break.
Dog break.
Why are y'all coming back here? What happened?
The squirrel is in the house.
I was thinking the squirrel pulled a knife on him. We gotta go.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the TV Pilot Podcast.
I'm Gideon.
I'm Andrew. This week we are talking about the USA hit television show Psych.
Psych.
It is about a psychic. Well, see,
It's about a fake psychic detective.
Oh, it's a fake psychic
Spoilers for
detective.
the first 10 minutes of the first episode.
Yeah. Spoilers for psychic powers not existing.
Well, we don't know that.
We don't know that for sure. That's true. I'm not a scientist.
The world is mysterious, full of mystery.
Full of mystery.
If you ever seen The Mentalist, it's like that.
But a little more modern,
Except-
funnier.
The Mentalist came after Psych.
It's not good though.
You don't like The Mentalist?
No, I'm not a big fan of The Mentalist.
I enjoyed.
What? No, I thought The Mentalist was from like the 90s.
No.
Am I thinking of a different show?
I don't know what you're
I'm thinking of The Pretender.
The Pretender. What the heck is that?
It's a show about a guy who's really good at pretending to be things. So like he pretends to be a doctor and he reads a bunch of medical textbooks and he's a really good
Catch
doctor.
Me If You Can.
He's a Catch Me If You Can guy. But he was
Steven
made
Spielberg.
in a lab. We should maybe talk
Tom
about this.
Hanks.
Nope.
Captain America. Leonardo DiCaprio. Don't know why I
Leonardo
said
DiCaprio,
Captain.
yeah.
Okay, so.
It is about a man pretending to be a psychic detective.
It was created by a man named Steve Franks. After he successfully pitched the movie Big Daddy, starring Adam Sandler in 1999, to Columbia Pictures, they asked him for 5 new TV program ideas. One of them was Psych. They thought it was ridiculous, and he kind of forgot about it. And it wasn't until years later he approached producer Kelly Kolchak to help him flesh out the idea, and she thought it was quote-unquote brilliant. They pitched the idea to several networks, including the big 3, ABC, NBC, CBS, and although they received a lot of positive reactions and laughter to the concept, no one was actually willing to buy. And Kolchak thinks it was because the idea of this comedy drama element of Psych was still a fairly new concept, not too utilized at the time.
I mean, they had like Monk, I guess.
And?
All right. Yeah, no, I'm just saying.
And
but
Monk-
like USA did Monk.
Yeah, and Monk leans more towards drama than it does comedy, I think.
definitely like it.
Well, Psych is more comedy than drama. But yeah, so it was still a concept that you'd only seen it here and there.
I can see that. Yeah.
And so no one wanted to take that risk. And it wasn't until USA decided to take that risk, and they picked up the show on the condition that they bring in other writers to help out, which Steve Franks did not want. He wanted to, I guess, write everything himself. I don't know. But he agreed, and so some of the inspiration for the show came from the fact that Steve Franks' dad and some of his uncles were LAPD officers, and he always had the idea of what if there was a cop show with his sense of comedy. Yes, good job, Cooper. Which is kind of what Psych is.
Yeah.
It was inspired by similar 80s detective shows such as Moonlighting, Remington Steele, and Simon and Simon. Never heard of them. I think I've heard of Remington Steele. Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah, that sounds right. You could have said anyone. You could have said Dick Van Dyke.
Franks didn't want the series taking place in a big city and decided on Santa Barbara while he was honeymooning there.
Santa Barbara has always felt like such a weirdly sized town to me.
It's
got like big city elements and big city crime, but they've also got like in the first episode like a textiles guy is a town magnate.
Yeah. It's a small town close enough to LA where they can kind of get away with having things like, oh, the football team is having trouble So you're gonna help the football team and the baseball team and
Yeah, it's like the police caring about what the local baseball team, like how it performs.
yeah, weird things like that. But you know,
All filmed in Vancouver, as any show set in California is.
yes, they filmed in Vancouver because so Steve Franks did want to film in Santa Barbara, but they didn't think it was big enough that they'd be able to get a big enough crew.
Yeah.
So they filmed in Vancouver, and they had to carry 8 fake palm trees between each set when they filmed. And these were like big boy. There was a picture on the internet.
No, those are huge, and they're filled with water. They're such heavy trees.
No, they're fake though.
Oh.
But they were still like tall.
Yeah,
and
they're
the crew
big.
had to deal with moving them.
If they were real palm trees, forget about it. That's
And because they weren't sure if the pilot would be picked up or not, all the sets are real on location for the pilot. And it wasn't until they knew that they would get more episodes that they built on.
all the sets. This is one of the ones where you can really tell it's a pilot too, because all the sets are so different from what the rest of the show ends up being. Gus's office, for one. Sean Spencer's dad's house, the main character Sean Spencer, his father's house is sort of an iconic location in the series. It's completely changed.
Police department is very different.
Very different police station. The office of the Psych headquarters.
Oh yeah, at the very end.
At the very end is different.
The pilot reused most of the material from Frank's original pitch, but it actually didn't involve Sean being a fake psychic. He was just a hyper-observant person helping police who... the pilot, similar, he calls in a tip. The police think he's a suspect. I don't know exactly how he gets out of it, but he ends up helping the police with a crime. And the show would be just this guy, this silly guy helping the police with the crime.
That's way less interesting. The element of him actively lying to police is it's interesting to me. It's more interesting than him just being
producers and I think the network that introduced the idea of having him be a fake psychic while they were nailing down things for the pilot. And actually Corbin Benson requested that they add 2 scenes to the pilot.
Which ones?
The one where he has lunch with Sean and their confrontation at the very end of the episode.
Those really work. Those are good.
They do work.
They show a lot of character growth.
I think originally Corbin Benson was only supposed to be in the flashback and just be in the flashback. Well,
no, because Sean goes to him for help, but I guess those are the scenes that were added.
Yeah, those scenes aren't super necessary.
They aren't true. They're sort of tacked on in that.
But it does add to the show
because
and his relationship with his dad.
The scene with them having lunch ties back to the original opening sequence of him in the diner as a kid.
Well, that was supposed to be in the middle of the episode.
Oh.
And they moved it to the front, which ended up influencing later episodes.
Almost
every episode starts with a flashback of Sean as a kid with his dad.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if Corbin Benson, he's a name at this point.
He was
in
probably
LA
the most,
Law, I think.
One of the most famous people in
Seinfeld.
Attached to the show, just right off the bat. Other than
I apologize for my dogs. Anyways,
probably other than Dule Hill, who was in The West Wing,
and Holes. Yes,
I can fix that.
I can fix that.
This is a good movie.
It was a great movie. Anyways, so James Roday improvised a good portion of the dialogue, especially during his little psychic episodes. And the pineapple, when he's in Gus's apartment and grabs the pineapple, that was improvised.
That's one of the major running gags in the series.
They weren't sure whether to keep it or not, and they ended up causing the theme. I don't know what
it's just a running gag. There's a pineapple hidden in a scene in every single episode, and it was sort of like a fan favorite thing to find it, to try and pick it out while they were watching the show. Sometimes it's pretty obvious. Sometimes
where's the pineapple, right?
Where's the pineapple.
So that's some of what led up to this. I think James Roday was a nobody James Rodriguez, but there was already a James Rodriguez at the agency he was working with.
What are the chances?
So he went to change his name to James Roday. And recently, within the last year or two, changed his name back to James Rodriguez.
When This Is Us, I think he's James Roday Rodriguez now.
Yeah, he recently changed it back.
It's like legally you can't have the same screen name as someone. That's why
I don't think that's true. But maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
Who knows? If only there was some way for us to find out.
Yeah.
No chance, though.
Nope.
There are a lot of cool things in this that are, just interesting to see. Differences between this pilot and and what the show would become. Mm-hmm. The pineapple. It's cool to see the pineapple. That's very interesting. The logo for the company, Psych. At the very end of the show, they show it.
And the beginning of the show starts with the logo Psych.
The logo, yeah.
And then it's on the building at the end, and
the logo in the pilot is blue, but the logo in the rest of the series is green.
And green would be like the show's color, I think.
Yeah, it was sort of stylistically, like it'd be in the opening sequence a lot. And then, like we said, a lot of the locations were wildly different. Santa Barbara Police Department, Gus's office, the Psych office, Henry Spencer's house. What else? Oh, the character of Lucinda, the junior detective. That's
Detective Barry.
Detective Barry.
It's what her name is online. I don't think it ever comes up in the episode.
It doesn't.
I don't know.
It may not.
Maybe at the very beginning when they I don't know. But they actually, why they got rid of her?
Why?
She was removed because test audiences didn't fully recognize that Lasseter was separated from his wife. So them having a relationship made the audience have a more negative view of Lasseter than what producers wanted.
I was gonna say right after this that Carlton Lasseter was way more of a douche than he is.
I don't know about that.
I mean, he's always been sort of antagonistic to Sean and Gus, the main duo. But in this one, he comes off like he's sort of just a slimy, sleazy
I guess
guy.
That's fair.
I mean, he's sleeping with what is effectively his employee, not employee, but his underling. I don't know.
Someone he's in charge of.
Yeah, someone he's in command.
We promise we're smart. There's a word for that we're both working on.
Harassment.
No, for the position she's in.
Yeah. Juliet replaces Detective Barry for the majority of the show. The rest of the show becomes the main love interest of Sean eventually. Basically right from her introduction.
Will they, won't they kind of for the...
Yeah.
And throughout the first couple seasons.
Sean has another girlfriend at some point, but it's, it's always been sort of everything sort of bending towards an ending where Sean and Juliet are together.
Yes.
That kind of thing. And that's another thing. Sean is written as much more of a playboy in this first episode.
Yeah.
He's the first scene that he's in. He's bringing home a waitress, presumably from a restaurant that he was at.
She says, "I knew you'd be my best table."
Yeah. He was eating alone, and he picked up the waitress. And that's not something he does in later episodes. Certainly,
he hooks up with another fake psychic. I think in season 1.
Yeah.
And there was a scene with him and the sister in the pilot that got cut. There was going to be a scene, I don't know how intimate it was going to be, but it would be him and her kind of progressing the flirtation that you see at first.
They do mention
getting more clues and information.
They do mention, sorry. They do mention that she and him are dating. They do mention that they have dating.
Dinner.
Yeah, they have dinner or something, and Gus accuses Sean of dating the witness, dating the sister of the victim.
But other than that, after this first season, he has a girlfriend at one point for multiple episodes, but And he'll flirt every now and then with a couple of people.
But I would say Gus becomes way more of a flirt most often, because Sean is usually in a steady relationship, and Gus is every time.
You heard about Pluto?
You heard about Pluto?
It's messed up.
Gus, the
that's right.
Master of pickup lines.
She's nice. Very nice.
If it hasn't been made abundantly clear, this is one of Gideon and I's favorite shows.
We love this show.
It's incredible. It's the only television series I owned fully on DVD.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I grew up watching this show. Like, my family, we would go to my grandmother's. Basically, every Friday, we'd go to my grandmother's and have dinner, and then we'd watch Monk and then Psych.
Wow. That basically mirrors how I watch. You watch Monk and then Psych, and then boom, like that's a Friday night.
Yeah, it was a good Friday night.
Psych was actually it was a very popular show. It was one of the most watched premieres in USA Network history.
It is the most watched
premiere. I wasn't sure. I knew it was like top 5 at least, but the most watched premiere.
I wrote that down like 10 minutes before you got here.
Shit. So let's get into talking a little bit about what actually happens in the episode. We have our opening scene, which becomes a staple of the show, with a flashback to Sean's childhood, the main character, Sean Spencer's childhood. He is in a diner with his father, Henry, and Henry is traumatizing him into having extrasensory abilities.
His dad is a cop, and I guess, I don't know exactly how much you get it, but it definitely becomes apparent later in the series that Henry's kind of training Sean to follow in his footsteps and becoming a cop.
Yeah.
So he's the main part of this, the main takeaway is that he has Sean close his eyes and say how many hats are in the diner to kind of hone his observations and memory skills. And
then we cut back to present day. Sean is hooking up with this aforementioned waitress, accidentally turns on the TV, and the news is on. And while Sean and the waitress are making out, Sean kind of has one eye on the television and sees a report about a string of thefts from a stereo store, like an electronic store. And he calls in a police tip line. Based on his observational abilities, he's determined that the store manager has been performing these thefts. The next day, basically, he leaves it that the
next day he shows up at the police department headquarters. Just the department.
Yeah. The department
he thinks he's getting a reward for calling in a helpful tip.
Yeah, but they bring him into the back. They are wanting to arrest him because they think that he was the partner of the store owner. He was actually involved in the theft because his tip was so helpful.
Yeah, he meets detectives Lassiter and Barry. And so as leading up to this, Sean just notices a couple things throughout the department.
A guy brushing off evidence from his sleeve to land in his boot.
He notices that the kind of clerk, the officer working the front desk, she has a lot of crystals and kind of paranormal paraphernalia around her area. He sees not detective, that's the end of the series.
Officer
McNabb kind of practicing a waltz in his head, slowly. Sees Lassiter kind of touch Detective Barry's hair in the mirror.
Let's do that again. Detective Barry. We synced up on that.
Yeah, so as they try to arrest him after a bit of arguing, Officer Allen, the woman from the front of the department, as she starts to pull out the handcuffs, he pretends to have a psychic episode, and that makes her stop. And he tells her, your grandmother spoke to me just now. She says, stop wasting time on those charlatans. And she's like, the palm readers. And she 100% believes him immediately.
Yeah.
Which is why he did it, because she was the one arresting him. He turns to the detectives and is like, y'all are hooking up. Turns to McNabb. He's like, hey, congratulations, wins the wedding. And that makes everyone kind of hesitate. And he kind of seals the deal by saying, go to the other interrogation room and check the perp's left boot.
Yeah.
And so Lassiter storms off to do that. And he's right. And I guess they believe him.
Yeah. And, that on its own would be pretty incredible. I can see why they would try and make that like, oh, this guy has just incredible observational skills. Let's just let him be a private eye for us. But it is so far fetched. Like they show his mindset throughout the entire thing. So they show what he's noticing when he notices it, and the conclusions that he's drawing are pretty obvious.
Once you know what he's seeing.
He's seeing.
And he sees things like there's plenty of times where he sees things off of a reflection.
Yeah.
Or he just notices things that most people would kind of brush by with their eyes.
Which, yeah, it's just a product of his childhood trauma-induced super brain.
And the police chief says it's improbable, possible but unlikely or something. So they address that this is a crazy thing happening.
Everyone is sort of they're like willing to give this a shot. So the end result of this is that the interim chief ends up hearing about this, hires Sean to investigate, or gives him probationary permission to investigate a kidnapping that just happened with a textiles mogul's son who's been kidnapped, and she sort of seems like she is skeptical. Everyone seems very skeptical that he is actually a psychic, but they know that he's effective, so they're just kind of letting it all slide. Sean gets hired for the case by Chief Vic. He goes to get his pharmaceutical sales friend, Burton Guster, on the case. Gus takes very little convincing to join in on Sean's psychic detective scheme. They go to investigate at the mansion of the missing heir. Sean gathers information. He is sort of doing this while also being it's kind of slapstick comedy. Like he hits on the sister of the kidnapped guy.
Classic.
He talks to the police sketch artist about what he's seeing, but it's just a kind of usual suspect, like a picture that's directly behind him. And the mother identifies it as the sister's boyfriend. And so he's just sort of implicating the sister's boyfriend, someone he wants to date, into this whole like kidnapping scheme.
He quickly says like, no, it's not him. But I'm getting the sense that he's a bad person. I don't know, something.
Yeah.
Something.
He figures out that after
all of this, Gus leaves. Gus is like, I've had enough of this.
Yeah.
Gus, it does take a little bit of convincing, but he goes kind of unwillingly. He tags along, and after seeing everything Sean's doing, he just kind of has enough and leaves.
Yeah.
And so then the next morning, Sean breaks into Gus's apartment, and tells him they have coffee, and he tells him, "Oh, I solved it. Camden, the guy who's kidnapped, he kidnapped himself for ransom money. Him and his friend put this scheme together a year ago after his dad threatened to take away his inheritance. So he quote unquote cleaned up his act and then disappeared with this friend who he hasn't seen in a year. It's perfect timing. It lines up, and Gus is like, "Oh, that's actually makes sense." So they he says, "Oh, his friend has a cabin, kind of, a couple hours drive."
Yeah.
So they drive out, and they're pulled over, and an officer talks to Sean, and Sean kind of has an old card from his dad being a police officer to get out of the ticket, and he finds out from this police officer that his dad has actually moved back from Miami a year ago. And Sean had no clue, kind of showing that their relationship hasn't been rock solid since we first saw them together at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah.
But anyways, they show up at the cabin, across the river from the cabin with binoculars, and they see Camden's dog, who he loved. The dad said, "Oh, he loved that thing. He took it everywhere." So they see the dog, and Gus and Sean get all excited because they know they're right. And Gus says, "We should call the police." And Sean says, "No, actually, let's go back. I'll have a psychic episode, and it'll lead us with the police here. I'll say, oh, I see kayaks, I see numbers for the highway." And Gus is kind of doesn't want to, but understands why and goes along with it. And so then they go back to Santa Barbara where they meet Detective Lassiter and Barry on their way to lunch. And after a little fake psychicness, they convince them to go follow them. So they go up to the cabin again. Sean hands Lassiter the binoculars. Lassiter sees the dog. And so they call in more police officers and they swarm in because they think it was an actual kidnapping still.
Yeah.
Open the cabin door to find both Camden and his friend dead in an apparent murder-suicide. Mm-hmm. Which surprises Sean because that's not how he expected things to go. And it actually, we find out later at the police department that Sean thinks that something's up and that that's not quite fully what happened.
So Sean wants to keep investigating. He suspects the father because the father is hiding a wrist injury. He assumes that he got it in some sort of struggle. And then Sean he's sort of waved off by everyone involved. Just say, don't investigate this case anymore. It's all wrapped up.
They've been through enough.
Suicide. Yeah, the family's been through enough. He tries to go talk to his father, who's back in town, and get his help on the case. Sean and his dad go to lunch, and Henry tests Sean just like he did in the opening scene of the episode by having him tell him how many hats are in. And Sean, blows it out of the water. It's not like when he was a kid. He's much better at this now. He tells him all the hats, tells him, I heard one guy leaving. When Henry tries to pull a fast one on him and say there were that he missed a hat.
Like 4. He's like, nope. He's like, well, the cowboy hat left while I was talking about the other person's hat. And Henry looks around confused.
Yeah. Clearly the student has become the master. And that convinces Henry to give him a little advice that lets him continue. I don't remember what the advice was. It wasn't like...
He says, he shows up at the house and then Henry says, I'm on my way to lunch. You can join me. Mm-hmm. And so as they're leaving lunch, he says something like, when it cuts to them at lunch, Henry says, when I was a police officer, there were 2 things I hated, private investigators and psychics. Well, congrats, son. You're 2 for 2 or something.
You hit the disappointment exacta.
That's what it was.
Anyways. The advice he gives is figure out who you're trusting.
Yeah, there's someone in this case that maybe you're trusting too much.
Yeah. So Sean immediately starts suspecting Katerina. The sister. The sister. The sister. So Sean and Gus start following the sister, who he's been flirting with through this whole investigation. And they follow her while carrying a suspicious-looking duffel bag.
She's carrying
a suspicious-looking duffel bag.
And they follow her.
They end up following her, trying to steal the duffel bag while she's handing it off to a sort of a large, long-haired, bearded dude. Come to find out, they take the duffel bag. It was filled with thrift store goods that they're donating in the weirdest way possible, in a back alley, in a duffel bag handoff.
I think the front entrance is for people who are shopping to come in. So in the back is where you donate.
So the grungy alley.
It's not like it was the middle of the night.
That's fair.
And it's Santa Barbara. It's not.
I guess I don't know how they do things there. It's creepy though. Like it's definitely shady.
Downtown LA, in the middle of the night.
So, it ruins his relationship with Katerina, and Sean convinces Gus to go in and buy the duffel bag back so they can get it because they do think that duffel bag was involved in the crime. I don't know why they think this.
So when he sees her walking out of wherever she's work or whatever with the duffel bag, he can see what looks like corners poking out from the bag.
Oh,
so he's saying that looks like money, and
gotcha. Yeah,
he wants to see the bag. Why did it look like it was filled with money when it was filled with towels and clothes?
Yeah. So Gus goes in, talks to the guy that they tried to steal the duffel bag from originally. And he gets very mad at Gus. But Sean,
I've gone to prison for less than you.
Sean is sneaking in the back this whole time. He's actually using Gus as a distraction, which is very common throughout the show. Is Sean just not telling Gus the whole plan, just sort of making him a decoy. Gus ruins it by pointing out Sean and saying, "Look at him,"
and then runs away. I mean,
so they both use each other as decoys, but they do end up getting the duffel bag. And they look at it, and it looks like it has these deep, like, groove impressions of where money has
like
been
stretched
stored.
out maybe a little bit from the corners of the money.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly.
I don't know if that's realistic, but it's what happened.
So Sean, he goes back to the police department to talk to Detective Barry and kind of says, like, I know you're not fully convinced by this either. And she's kind of doesn't want to say how she feels about it.
They go out to the gun range to have this conversation to like continue this talk somewhere private, the local gun range or the police department. Yeah. And apparently Sean is really good with guns. Like she shoots a few holes in the target, and then she was like, "Okay, your turn." And then Sean picks up the gun, just bam, 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 bam. Does the Robin Hood thing where he shoots bullets through all her bullet holes.
There's little 2 bullet holes right next to each other in every hole.
And he does it so fast.
It's believable given his childhood trauma.
The amount of training. I mean, it is like.
And there are 2 more times in the series that he picks up a gun, and he's handy with it. The 2 times he has it, I think.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is to show that he has been trained in. He was raised to be a cop by his cop dad.
Yeah,
and he's sort of not.
But he because of this strange relationship with his dad, he doesn't want to be a cop. He doesn't want to take a gun with him to places. He wants to be as far removed from a cop while having fun solving these crimes as he can.
Because it is what he's good at. It's sort of.
And he enjoys it. It's fun. Like he tells Gus, "You want to live out the dreams we've had ever since we were a kid."
Yeah.
And that's in this episode. So then, sorry, your stupid notes.
Sean is a fucking Robin Hood with guns. Where did this go? So Sean and Gus go to confront the father, Mr. McCallum, the father of the kidnapping, the kidnapping now murder victim. And accuse him of killing his own son. Sean sort of paints out this picture where the father figured out what the son was doing, went to confront him. They got in a struggle, and the dad pushed him over accidentally. He hit his head on a table, which is how he died originally, and he killed his friend to cover it up. So that's, it's all very convincing. Gus sort of pretends to get sick with the mention of blood. He's sort of been shown to be a little squeamish around violence.
For sure.
So he pretends to be sick, leaves the room, and comes back in after Sean's been grilling the father a little bit and says, "Hey, we got to go. This isn't, we got to just leave." And Sean follows his lead, to his credit. Sean
doesn't want to, but he does.
Yeah, and it's sort of the same relationship that Gus has with Sean. It's like they trust each other, so they'll go along begrudgingly when one of them is very insistent. And Gus talks to Sean. He says he's found dog bite ointment in the medicine cabinet, and they're talking about it like, oh, that's what happened. The dog, that's how the wrist injury got there. He didn't injure it, in the fight. He injured it after the fact when the dog bit him. So Sean, to get the police there to have an audience, he doesn't call the cop on McCallum. He calls pretending to be like a butler or a servant in the McCallum
himself.
Yeah.
Like, he just won't leave the premises.
Yeah. And so the cops start pulling up. They begin arresting Sean, but right at the last moment, Lassiter sort of banks Sean's head on the car as he's putting him into the back of the...
Kind of on purpose. Lassiter isn't great.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He seems like a real shithead in this. And he's a bad guy throughout the first few seasons. He is an antagonist with only like very few redeeming scenes. It's not until much later that he becomes sort of a friendlier.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
So this Sean uses that, kind of makes him go like, check his wrist. I'm like, he's having a vision. He says, check his wrist. He got bit by the dog. Check it before it heals or whatever. And McAllen was like, no one's gonna check my wrist, and Chief Vic is there, and she's kind of wondering, kind of convinced, and especially with McAllen's reaction, like nobody's checking anything, you're gonna whatever. She says, well, why not? And he's like, what? She says, well, why not? Let's just get it over with. And he's like, no, or something. And she says, okay, well, I can get a warrant to check your wrist, see if it's a dog bite. And then he just immediately says, like, it was an accident. I forget. I just watched it. But he immediately
solves the whole
thing. Confesses to doing it, and he's sad because he didn't want to kill his son. And so then they let Sean and Gus go, and that's kind of the end of the case. Case solved.
Sean is back at the police station. He goes back to get his reward money from Chief Vic, and just walks into her office. Chief Vic is talking with someone, and it turns out to be Sean's father, who's there speaking with the police chief. He leaves, and Chief Vic admits that she called him in for
to talk about Sean.
Yeah, to talk about Sean as a recommendation. Sean initially very worried about this, but Chief Vic says, he says you've had psychic abilities for since you were 18 years old. And Sean is amazed that his father has lied for him, because that's not something that he ever thought he'd do. So he goes out to confront his father.
And they talk outside his truck.
Yeah.
And Sean sees in the truck a newspaper with the article about Sean solving the case. And so it kind of has a nice little uplifting ending for their relationship, in that he recognizes that his dad is kind of proud of him.
Yeah. It's nice. For him. Yeah. It's a little character arc in and of itself. I'm glad. I didn't know that it took Corbin Benson pushing for these things. Corbin Burnson?
Corbin Benson?
I think it's Corbin Burnson.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Okay.
Fix that in post, Godfrey.
Yeah, thanks, Godfrey. If we get it wrong the rest of the episode, you're fucking fired.
And so then it's the last commercial break. And for the kind of tag of the episode, Sean and Gus park somewhere, and Gus is like, what is this? He's like, this is our new office. And on the window it says Psych in blue.
Ugh. Gross.
And Gus Psych, as in gotcha. He's like, oh, it's perfect. No one will suspect a thing. And they walk into the office, and Gus is like, not about it. But he's like, well, I put your name on the lease, so...
You can't do anything about it, yeah. Gus just kind of gets pulled in.
And that's the how the episode ends, pretty much. With them kind of... Gus apprehensive, but in general, them excited to continue this detective agency. Good solid pilot, in my opinion.
Exactly, yeah. Really great. I think one of the stronger pilots.
One of the stronger episodes, honestly, also. It helps. It's a longer episode. It's an hour show, so 40 minutes after commercials. But the pilot was an hour and a half. It was originally planned to be 2 hours, but then after network stuff, they cut it down to an hour and a half. So it is an hour of after taking away. So it's an extra 20 minutes than the other episodes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it leads up to a really good first season also. The first season of Psych is
one of my favorite episodes. The Spelling Bee episode is episode 2. And I was so shocked by that when I saw it on next in the queue when I was watching the pilot, because it's honestly one of my favorite episodes. I'll watch it a lot. I had no idea it was so early in the show.
Yep. The pilot was overall generally well received. There were some mixed reviews. A critic or writer for People's Magazine said Roday is just a big kid who needs him. But a lot more critics said compared it to Monk.
Yeah.
Some saying it was more, which I feel like is most people would agree with. It's a lot more lighthearted than Monk and more fun than Monk.
It's more lighthearted. It's more kid friendly in a way.
Yeah. And I enjoy Monk as well. I love
absolutely.
Monk, but
Psych is definitely better for families.
They're similar, except Monk is the drama and Psych is the comedy, despite the fact that they're both comedy dramas.
Yeah.
Is how I would kind of put it.
Yeah. Like Monk is a drama comedy and Psych is a comedy drama.
Yeah, something like however you want to put it. The pilot aired after the 5th season of Monk started, the season premiere of the 5th season of Monk, and they kept them together. They moved Monk up an hour, and Psych took Monk's spot to help use those good ratings for Monk to kind of help Psych. And some critic or someone called that some of the most delightful 2-hour block of television. Something like that.
That's nice, yeah.
They called it, yeah.
Formative for my childhood experience.
Yeah, so they were partnered from 2006 until Monk ended in the end of 2009.
Wow. It's a good 3 years.
Yeah.
strong 3 years for USA. So
Psych ran for 8 seasons and 3 movies. 3 post-season movies.
3 post-season movies? Yeah, they have This Is Gus just came out.
A while ago.
Just but like, I don't know. So Psych is in a line of shows that are like detective shows, murder of the week shows, serialized detectives.
Like NCIS.
Yeah. Law and Order, Sherlock Holmes style. Shows that can be boiled down to one sentence that starts with, it's about a detective, but... and then something special about what that detective is, how it separates them from sort of all the other detective shows that come out, because it's a very popular genre. So I have
so many of them. Yeah,
I have a list of famous detectives from
Columbo,
a lot of different mediums. Columbo's not on there.
Dang it.
And I want you to either. I can give you the name of the detective and you tell me what's special about them.
Oh, okay.
Or I can tell you what's special about them and you can give me the name of the detective. What do you want?
Switch between them.
Switch them between them? Okay.
Why not?
It's about a detective, but she's a teenage girl.
Ally McBeal?
No.
Is that not about a detective?
I don't think so.
Nancy Drew?
It's Nancy Drew.
That wasn't a TV show.
Right. That wasn't. Well, it's a book. It's not. These aren't all TV shows.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Veronica Mars.
I have no clue. I've heard of Veronica Mars.
It's another teenage girl. She's also a teenage girl.
That's what I was kind of thinking.
It's about a detective, but he's a priest.
A priest?
Uh-huh.
Is this a book or a TV show?
TV show and a book. I think it's also a book.
Is it what's the cartoon or the show in King of the Hill? Monsieur Senior.
Monsignor. No.
Okay, what is it?
It's Father Brown.
Father Brown?
A BBC show, yeah. A lot of these
BBC?
are British. Some of these are British. So.
Okay.
All right. Here's an easy one. Monk.
Cheater. He has severe OCD.
Yeah. Okay. It's about a detective, but he's a wizard.
He's a wizard?
Uh-huh.
Is it Merlin?
No.
You mentioned BBC. I don't know.
This is not a BBC show. It was a TV show, and it is also a series of books.
I don't know. What?
Harry Dresden. From the Dresden Files.
Oh, yeah. My old roommate loved those books.
They're great books. The main character is a private eye.
Interesting. Okay.
And a wizard.
Okay.
All right. Shinichi Kudo.
What?
Shinichi Kudo.
Who?
He is the main character from Detective Conan.
Detective Conan?
It is an anime, yeah.
He is a detective, but he's also a barbarian. He's also a 6'5" gangly ginger.
No.
That's the 2 Conans I know.
He's a detective, but he's been age regressed to be a child.
Okay, next.
It's about a detective, but she's super strong.
She-Hulk.
No,
she's a lawyer.
She's a lawyer.
She's super strong?
Uh-huh. Jessica Jones.
Oh, I was close.
Nero Wolfe.
Nero Wolfe?
Nero Wolfe. Nero, the Roman Emperor, Wolfe with an E.
Okay, let's do just the detective, but... Cause,
you're not going to get
names. I don't know the names.
He is obese. He's the armchair detective. He would send people out. It's I think
a TV
he's
show?
French. No, it's a book series.
It
may be a TV show.
French
it may have been an old TV
book
series. It got translated.
Oh, yes, I assume.
All right, it's about a detective, but she's very old.
Oh, Murder, She Wrote.
Nope.
Oh.
Miss Marple.
I guess
it may be Murder, She Wrote.
She wasn't that old during Murder, She Wrote, was
No,
she?
she was normal age.
Miss Marple?
Miss Marple.
That's
it's
newer.
an Agatha Christie
That's a newer
character. No.
Is it not newer?
No. I mean, they may be making a new show out of it.
I think. Oh, maybe I'm thinking of the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. And
But...
they sound similar.
The Marvelous Miss Marple.
Okay.
All right. It's about a detective, but he's Belgian.
He's Belgian. Oh, Poirot.
Poirot, yeah. Hercule Poirot.
Kenneth
From Nile and Orient Express fame. And then his BBC show as well. Agatha Christie, another one of those. So, the detective genre is alive and well.
Rots with these wacky characters.
Yeah. There's Benoit Blanc. He's a detective, but he's Cajun. He's from Louisiana.
It's not Cajun.
He's not Cajun. He's just
chicken fried Southern.
Okay. He's got a very strong accent.
He's Foghorn Leghorn.
He's Foghorn Leghorn, but
I say this donut has a hole in it. So whatever he says in Knives Out. He's a detective, but he was a former fake psychic.
He's a detective, but he's a former fake psychic?
Former fake psychic.
I don't know.
That's The Mentalist.
That's The Mentalist.
The Mentalist starts after he's been Sean Spencer, I guess.
Okay.
His family was... You didn't watch The Mentalist?
I didn't watch The Mentalist at all.
Really good. I enjoyed it. Anyways...
Very good show.
Great show. The pilot, I think, does a great job of just being the show, being what the show would.
Yeah.
The strong parts of the show.
Setting up everything.
Gus is kind of a minor character in the pilot.
Yeah.
He's just there as the straight man. But he has that one line where the guy says, "I've gone to jail for less than you," and Gus says, "Oh, jail's no fun." And the guy's like, "Oh, you've been?" He said, "Once in Monopoly." And that just pisses the guy off more. And like lines like that kind of are what make Gus such a fun and likable character.
Yeah.
Because yes, he's the straight man, but he is plenty of times is just as ridiculous as Sean.
And they ramp that up throughout the series too. Like this is probably as tame as their like antics get in terms of like really crazy stuff they do. A lot of like inside jokes. So the pilot is definitely a pilot in the sense that
their style wasn't complete.
Yeah. It was made to sort of sell a show, and then once it got approved, once it got funding, the show kind of coalesced.
Yes.
And I think a big part of that was adding the love interest in Juliet, or someone who's more of a love interest, because I think that Detective Barry, if she had stayed, would have become a love interest for Sean.
I don't think so, because she was with Lassiter.
I think that would have been a source of conflict.
That was to make Lassiter, to give him another depth, I guess. Which they did later, like a couple episodes in, they had him interact with his ex-wife, or separated wife, a little more, and you could see more of the behind the scenes for Lassiter and kind of understand a little more why he's so kind of jaded or like stern.
Yeah.
But that would have caused, I think, even more of a rift between him and Lassiter, which given how they started in this pilot, wouldn't have been a good thing.
I think, I don't know, it would have been a good source of conflict. I think it would have.
Yes, but also.
It could have gone in interesting directions.
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, I like the way it turned out. I think.
Oh, for sure. Jules is great.
Yeah, she's a great character, a great addition to the show.
And it's a lot more believable that she's willing to call Sean in to help him with this and that, and Gus, and kind of go against Lassiter every now and then, to a degree. She's never blatantly pissing off Lassiter by including Sean, but.
So yeah, I think altogether, I'd always rate this a 10 out of 10 in terms of pilots. I loved it.
Like I said, it establishes the formula Psych kind of sticks with for every episode. Spoiler, which is
Spoiler,
flashback that
USA shows may be a little formulaic.
flashback at the beginning to kind of establish a theme for the episode, what this episode's going to be about, whether it's a pseudo horror episode or bounty hunter episode. Or,
this one was about hats.
This one was about hats for sure. But that, and then you see, well, they didn't have anything to establish a kind of prequel or prologue. So you have the flashback, then a prologue for what the actual case will be in a normal episode. They didn't have that in this episode because the prologue was Sean solving a case from the TV.
Yeah.
And then the SBPD and Sean and Gus working the case, getting it wrong, seeing clues, going to Henry, having some interaction with him, and getting some nugget of wisdom from Henry's.
Yeah, they gotta climb the mountain of that man's just sheer disapproval for what they're doing,
and then that causing them to be wrong again, and then and then everything, the stars aligning to Sean being like, oh,
he makes a realization that he plays off as like a psychic vision and solves the whole case.
Yes. But some of the episodes are just formulaic. They all have this kind of basis, and there will be episodes that stir away. Like there's an episode where they just show up and to where Sean texted them. There's no flashback, not yet. And they realize that Sean has been shot and kidnapped. And that's how the episode starts, and kind of that deviates a little way. And you see them work backwards kind of throughout the episode. But even in those more formulaic episodes, they all have their subtle differences. And random Sean just kind of doing whatever he can to get attention.
There's a lot of comedy moments that are just sort of Sean being a nuisance.
That's a good gag.
It's a lot like other shows that are like they have their running gag. Like Phineas and Ferb has all their running gags.
What are we gonna do today, Perry?
Yeah. What are we gonna do today, Gus? what murder are we gonna solve today, Gus?
Yeah. So what do we rate Psych?
Oh, 10 out of 10. I'm 10 incredibly biased, but yeah, 10 out of 10. I can't give it anything lower.
The bias in me says 10 out of 10 as well. But
what it realistically?
Ignoring that, I think 9.
2.
Oh, gross.
Your idea.
I think like an 8.8 or a 9 out of 10.
Yeah. It had some rough edges for sure.
Yeah.
I can look past my rose-colored glasses.
I mean, this is going to be stupid. This is going to sound stupid. If they had written the first season and then wrote the pilot, that pilot would have been an 11 out of 10. You know? They would have they'd been able to use Gus a little better. Lassiter would have come off maybe not as abrasive.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just certain
hindsight's
aspects.
20/20, but yeah, I would say this is as good as they could have done without being psychic.
Yes. This is the best a fake psychic could have made this pilot episode.
Yeah.
Simon Baker, eat your heart out.
The Mentalist?
Yeah.
I got it. I basically watched the show now.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Next week we are doing a different show, probably.
We'll
probably do a different show.
30-minute sitcom.
Like, comment, subscribe, tell your friends. Thanks, and see ya
Share
next one.
Send it to people. Tweet it. Post it on the Facebook. God, did I sound 50 just now?
Yeah, what? You asked me earlier how you could work with a PDF. You okay?
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye. It's sort of like just a Man in the High Castle kind of alternate history. What if? A little bit lower stakes than Man in the High Castle, but
just a little bit.
Just tiny.
What if the show was different?
What if?
And then
what if the show?
The universe starts collapsing. Oh no! What did we do?
What did we do?